So they will be, but they will be back on the 30th.
On the 30th,
Okay.
okay, I'll let them know.
Okay. You're welcome. But their attorney has agreed to meet with the other attorney, the community attorney. Okay? You're welcome.
For a long day.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Okay, let's go.
Good morning. Today is the April 23rd docket of the Baltimore City Liquor Board. The first item is a protest of renewal. It's Byung Wook An and Patrick T. Min. This is called ACA Liquors, Inc., Eric 500. This is at 500 North Avenue, the Class BD7, Beer, Wine, and Liquor. Protest of renewal under Article 2B, 10301A. Yes.
Everybody here?
Yes. Yes.
I thought you said Smith was coming.
He's in court, I believe.
He's running a little bit late, I'm sure.
Not coming?
He said he's gonna be a little late, but I'm not sure what time he's gonna come, sir.
What's your name, sir?
Randy?
Yeah, well, you need your last name, too.
Joe, J-U-N-G?
So I think there will be very, very brief testimony. So if we want to swear the
All right,
witnesses.
swear everybody in.
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right, Ms. Wade?
Yes, my name is Becky Witt, and I'm here to represent the New Greenmount West Community Association and the Greater Greenmount Community Association jointly. And so these two community associations have come to an agreement with the licensees at 500 East North Avenue, and so they're withdrawing their protest of renewal because the licensees have agreed to follow the agreement, and they've agreed to give the licensees another chance to improve. And I think that I have a board member of the Greater Greenmount Community Association here with me who would like to make a brief statement, and then I think the licensees.
Might also want to make a statement. Will you introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Lowell Larson. As Ms. Witt mentioned, I'm with the Greater Greenmount Community Association. I'm the treasurer of that association. She also mentioned that we have entered into a memorandum of understanding with the licensees, and I'm just here to reaffirm that we appreciate that the licensee has been willing to enter into an MOU, and we look forward to them reopening and running their store in the future in accordance with the MOU. Thank you.
You want to say something, sir? Or not?
My cousin made a couple of mistakes in the last couple of years, but, you know, we're not gonna make those kind of same mistakes anymore.
Okay, and your name, sir?
Randy, last name John, J-U-N-G.
And your position with respect to the license?
I'm cousin.
Cousin of his, and who's the licensee?
Hey,
He is, and he is who?
Byung An.
Okay. All right. Now, the only issue before the board, of course, is whether or not the license should be continued. This is the annual license hearings on all licenses to determine whether or not they should be continued or not. The fact that you entered into an MOU, of course, is between the two of you. It's not, we don't require, it has nothing to do with us. You understand that?
Yes, so the two community associations are withdrawing their protest
So
of
the
renewal.
fact that you withdrew the protest, now there's no testimony before us to oppose the renewal of the license.
No, there is not.
Mhm. All right,
That I know of.
good. The commissioners have anything you wish to say?
Nothing.
Nothing.
All right, I vote yes.
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 All right, the license is renewed, sir. You can go. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
The last two items for 4919 Bel Air Road have been, will be postponed until April 30th. The two groups are meeting together, and we will have that back on your next docket.
Okay, nobody's here for that one, right?
Yes, sir. There's no one here for that because they have both agreed to meet to develop an MOU.
All right, that brings us down to Goodfellas Lounge.
Those are the two. That's Goodfellas Lounge at 4919 Bel Air Road.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one that I'm discussing. Those have been moved to April 30th, 2014.
All right. All right. That, so what do we have then?
That's it. We have, our next set of hearings will begin at 1 o'clock. You have a protester, you have 2 protester renewals at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Jeez.
And that will be I have here Eastern Avenue
Yes, that is 2000 Eastern Avenue.
and,
And
The-
the
the-
Irish Stroll participants, there are 17 licensees named in that.
okay. All right, folks, we'll stand in recess till 1 o'clock.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we couldn't get him to come in sooner. Yeah. Wow, okay, that's why they couldn't.
Now, this, you've got this
Yes,
in the
I got
record
that.
already
Yes, I
then?
do. And I'll accept it officially. Today is April 23rd. This is the 1 PM docket of the Baltimore City Liquor Board. The order of the docket has changed. The Irish Stroll participants, I'm going to call up first. I'm going to read each one of them into the record. The first one is Pub Dog of Federal Hill, Inc. That is at 20 East Cross Street. This is a protest of renewal. Under Article 2D 10301A. The second licensee is the Stalking Horse, located at 26 East Cross Street. Again, this is a protest of renewal. Bookmakers at 33 to 31 East Cross Street. Again, a protest of renewal, Class BD7. The next one is Riley's Oyster House, located at 32 East Cross Street. Protest of renewal again. No Way Jose Cafe, located at 38 East Cross Street, Class B. Protest of renewal. SF Life Blue Agave Restaurant, 1032 Light Street. Protest of renewal. Row House Bar and Grill at 1400 East Light Street, Class B, protest of renewal. Marshall Inc., Nobles Bar and Grill, 1024 South Charles Street, BD7, protest of renewal. Illusions Magic Bar and Lounge at 1025 to 27 South Charles Street, Class D, protest of renewal. 1026 South Charles Fat Larry's LLC, protest of renewal. McGurk's and McGurk's Pub, Inc., 1061 South Charles Street, a Class BD7, protest of renewal. Mad River Bar and Grill at 1110 South Charles Street. The next one is Mother's Federal Hill at 1113 South Charles Street. That's a Class B, protest of renewal. CNR Restaurant Group for CNR Pub, 1117 South Charles Street, a Class B, protest of renewal. Sobo Taco Spot, Banditos at 1118 South Charles Street, Class BD7, protest of renewal. Rope Walk, Rope Walk Inc. at 1209 South Charles Street, a Class BD7, protest of renewal. And Abby's Bistro LLC, Abby's Bistro Burger at 1041 to 43 Marshall Street, Class B, protest of renewal. Those are all the licensees that are the participants and that are part of the protest of renewal that was filed on March 31st, 2015.
All right, will the licensees and the protestants please approach?
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
No.
My name is Joe Woolman from J.R. Woolman LLC. I represent the licensees who are all, do you want them all up front here, or would you rather have them?
No,
stay?
you can have them all stay back, unless we need testimony. I don't think we do.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Elizabeth Homer, and I am a protestant.
And how do you spell your last name?
H-O-M as in Mary, E-R, sir.
And yours is the letter we received from you.
Yes.
Yes. And what do you have to say, Mr. Homer?
With the board's permission, I would like to explain why we filed the protest in the first place, if I may.
Your Honor, if I may, just for the record, I understand there's been a withdrawal in the 11th hour of this protest, which obviously we have no objection to. If that's indeed the case, then obviously that is fine. If we're still going to have a procedure, whether it's a hearing or whatever you want to characterize it as, I'm not sure why.
Here's the way I'm going to do it. I understand because you've written a letter to us, and I'm reading it, and it says you're withdrawing your protest.
That's correct.
Against all the. This is a hearing solely for the purpose of determining whether a license should be renewed or not. Since that reason, the opposition to the renewal of the license is now no longer before us because of your letter of April 22nd, which I have, which I'd like to mark it as Exhibit 1. Therefore, there's no opposition, and therefore, the only issue before us is no issue is the renewal of the license. Because there's no opposition, because there's no facts to deny the renewal of the license, we're ready for vote. I vote yes that the license should be renewed, and then I'll get back to you.
I vote yes also.
I vote yes.
All right, so you have our decision, your licenses are all renewed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Now, ma'am, I'll be glad to hear from you.
Thank you, sir. We filed this in frustration with the March 14th event, which is an annual event. This year, 6,000 to 8,000 tickets were sold.
How many?
6,000 to 8,000. We are not totally sure of a complete number.
How much did that ticket sell for?
I believe they were $20 apiece.
And these are the two people that have sponsored it?
The sponsor.
Or are they all sponsoring it? How did it work?
The Federal Hill Hospitality Association was the sponsor, of which most of these, all of these, I assume, because they are participating. are
Want to pull
members.
that mic down so you?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Based on the fire marshal's capacity figures for the participating bars, we have ascertained that there are about 3,548 is the capacity of the 17 participating bars. And there were sold up to 6,000 to 8,000 tickets. Now, that's a lot of extra people, and I don't know where they're supposed to go. We've attempted for years to manage this event to no avail. There have been minutes from 2012 and probably before that show the community's frustration.
This is not the first time?
No. And we have had discussions to no avail. The most recent event, Mr. Costello, our representative, attempted to lay out some parameters that would control it, and in spite of that, we had terrible results. We can show that the license to the Federal Hill Hospitality Association was obtained with false information.
To obtain to what?
With false information
From whom?
from the Federal Hill Hospitality Association.
Your Honor, I'm just going to have to object for the record. I understand we don't have a hearing right now, but I need to, just for the record, object.
Oh,
They present themselves as a nonprofit organization, and they had their IRS status revoked in September 2014 for lack of filing 990 reports. We have clear evidence of overseeing. If you would like to see either our video or some still pictures of what happened as a result of that crawl.
Why don't we just look at some of your still
Okay.
pictures?
Your Honor, by way of clarification, and again, I'm objecting to this for the record, I'm not sure.
Mr.
what-
Woolman, why
what-
would you object when you just had all your licenses renewed?
Well, because now you're allowing a procedure, for the lack of a better term, it's not a hearing on anything at this point. You're allowing testimony as to what, I don't know. There's no issue before you that this testimony is germane to.
Well,
So
there is
I'm-
it's kind of an indirect issue, and I'll tell you what it is. First of all, we're a community board. And the purpose of a community board is to listen to the community with respect to the privilege of having a license. And it has come to me through the newspapers that this group that sponsored this one is also sponsoring others. And this is something new. This years ago, didn't happen. On Irish Day, people who got in a bus and went from one bar to the other in the bus held maybe 50 people. There were never any problems. And this is a profit thing. I don't think it's because someone is Irish and is honoring Ireland Day in the United States, which is a celebration rather than a religious day in this country. I don't think that that's the purpose behind it. I think the purpose is to make money. Now, that's me talking. And therefore, because there's another one planned for the same area, I'm told, and probably for profit and selling tickets again, the city of Baltimore is involved by giving a permit to actually come and do it and pay money for the permit, and the amounts of attendance are stated in the permit, as to how many people are supposed to be there and so forth. When it begins to affect a community, a complete community, in which these bars are involved, in which they're supporting it and making a contractual type of agreement with these people who are out for money, who are doing this, I believe it should be, give her the opportunity to put these facts before us all, that perhaps we should have to do something in the future to stop it.
I certainly understand your point. If I may speak to it very briefly.
Yeah, sure.
There was a hearing that was set for today. It's been withdrawn.
That's right.
We had over 50 members of the community, and the community is defined in many different ways, and obviously different people have different opinions as to what the community is regarding this area. This protest was withdrawn. People were taking time off of work to come down here and testify. We had over 50 people coming today, and we told them, you don't have to come now. You don't have to take off of work. This protest, the matter before you, not future events, not concerns that you're sharing, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but in terms of the law, in terms of process, in terms of what's in front of you now, it's been withdrawn. We therefore called off our witnesses. Unfortunately, my clients all still had to come here today because they're required to be here, which is unfortunate. But I don't think that this very small, relative to the number of residents, and I live a few blocks from these establishments as well, a very small.
Which side were you on?
I wasn't there that day, but I can tell you I've lived there probably longer than a lot of the protestants. I've been in Federal Hill since I was in law school, which I hate to admit how long ago that was.
Well, you ducked the question. What side were you on?
What's that?
What side were you on?
Side of what?
Whether you liked what happened or didn't like it.
Well,
You lived there.
I'm not going to speak to it because I wasn't there, but my understanding is that some of the videos that were produced actually included scenes from post-Ravens games and Orioles games and other events. And, I wasn't there. But the bottom line is, we were here on a protest that's been withdrawn. If we're now going to have a hearing.
Now, why don't you get to the point?
My point is that we should not allow this small group to have their cake and eat it too. You can't file what we consider a frivolous action under the rules based on the annual renewal protest, withdraw at the 11th hour, have us call off our witnesses, yet still come in and start presenting photographs and evidence and video and testimony. It's
Mr. Woolman,
not
you're getting all
proper.
excited over nothing because we've just voted to renew all the licenses.
I'm getting excited on behalf of my clients who frankly are upset. And I'm getting excited because they feel they've been dragged into a process and in the 11th hour, a process that was withdrawn, yet we're still allowing.
Well, let me say this. I don't care if they're upset or not.
No, I know you don't.
I'll tell you right flat off.
I certainly
And
wouldn't
we
expect
have-
you to be.
We have to be here and listen to both sides all the time, and that's what we're going to do. And I'm listening to you, and they're businessmen, and I understand that they could probably do something better than just come down here and listen to what we're about to listen to. But this may be a problem in the future, and I don't know whether it will be or not, because I won't be here myself.
Is this the forum to address it when a protest for renewal has been filed and it's been withdrawn? Why are we still
Mr.
continuing
Woolman,
to?
my position as chairman of this board has been continually to listen to the communities as well as the businessmen with respect to everything, and not to limit who can talk and who can't talk. And that's the way I feel about it.
I'm just stating
This
it
is
for
not
the
the
record.
Circuit Court of Baltimore City where we
Understood.
have different rules.
Understood, Your Honor.
And you're an attorney, and of course, you're used to the rules.
Understood.
And so am I. But this is different. This is a community board.
Understood.
And the rules of evidence are not here. We don't have rules of evidence. We allow letters, people who aren't here to talk. We have all kinds of things we don't do up above. And so I think you should feel good that we just renewed your licenses. And rule, what do they call that? Rule 1. isn't it?
Rule one.
Yeah.
Rule 1.
I've been so many years now that I'm almost forgetting my
Again,
rules.
just for the record, I'm not sure what we're proceeding under at this point.
Okay.
Is my point.
We don't even have to remain. Your people can leave if they want.
No, I think we better stay here
So I'm
to
gonna
rebut
listen, but I
anything
wanna
that's
hear
said.
Ms. Homer. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
And these are the pictures.
Yes, those are
Did
pictures.
you show him?
Yes, sure.
You have seen the pictures?
I've seen it. Thank you.
Okay.
And in the video, a couple of us who were here, including myself, went out and took video, and I personally saw 3 young women taken away by ambulance. And it strikes me that that is not a good, happy occasion. It's ridiculous. Cross Street Market during the day had to have its side doors locked to keep the drunk crowds from going in through the market and trying to gain access without buying tickets. Non-bar businesses locked their doors because people were trying to get in to use their bathrooms. They closed early, so they suffer as well. And Mr. Reisinger from the market is here, if you'd care to hear from him, because he observed what went on in the market that day. There's an overflow in the surrounding area. Though one street is closed, effectively, many of the streets around the area are also closed to the people who live there and to the businesses and their customers.
Which street was closed?
The street that was closed was Cross Street. Officially, that was what Federal Hill Hospitality Association got a permit to close. But streets affected, we put together a legend here, if you would
I
like
can't
to
hear
see
you.
this. Yes.
Ask a question.
Sure, absolutely.
Just one question. Did you or anybody from Federal Hill object to any of the permit applications that were issued for this event?
I don't know.
Good question. I wondered
Yes.
about myself.
I don't know what opportunity the community at large had to involve itself in this permit issue. There were meetings, and I can show you.
Maybe you better find out.
Well, we've been trying. I can show you this. There was substantial effort on the part of our city councilman, meeting with various people to try to limit this in some way. And we've tried this in past years. And obviously, you can see from the pictures, that didn't work. It's a process that is lacking somewhere. In the permit process, certainly in the awarding of the
Well, I think.
liquor license.
I think what you're pointing out to us is that a system that used to work isn't working anymore. And when I say that, I mean, as I pointed out in the old days, when I was much younger, not that I'm admitting any age, but anyway, people got on a bus. It was very harmless. And they got off the bus, they got back on the bus, and they drove to the next location and so forth. There was never any trouble. But it's a different world out there now. And of course, the city system is adopted to the old world. And perhaps you should look into it as to how the city in the first place initiated the whole process by giving the first permit, which started the roll down through the various departments, and finally the liquor board at the end also gave permission for it. And of course, it has to be, we don't have a system that I know of to know about something that hasn't happened. Maybe we should change our rules too, because of these other things that are coming up. I don't know. But Ms. Homer, I think we can take what you've told us without hearing every single person. Having read, I suppose, the newspapers and the pre-publicity has been given. But they now have their licenses, and you're going to be faced with it in the future. And I don't know what we can do today to help you.
I understand. I thank you for listening. And in view of Administrative Rule Number 4, we understand that you cannot give us the relief we requested.
But you can always, I want to remind everybody that we have a secret message system. Anybody can call in anytime and complain about a license. And the person who calls in, that identification will be kept private if the person so wishes. And then our inspectors will go out on that complaint, day or night, weekend or not, and look at it and see what the score is. If there is a violation, of course, it will be so noted and will come up before the board. Now, I'm not sure that's going to solve your problem, but at least it's a beginning. And also, you can also, as a community, recommend to the liquor board what you think we should do about this in the future. My term is going to end in June, and I am determined to leave. So perhaps in future, liquor boards would take it up. But also, you have the city council. You know, the city of Baltimore is a independent unit of the state of Maryland.
Yes.
And unless the state legislature contradicts what the city of Baltimore does, the city council and mayor, is law. So you have an open field there. You can go before Calliope, Ms. Parsimus, I'm sure, who's the chief of staff under the mayor, and suggest what should be done with respect to these issues in the future. I think the city has looked at them now as a fundraiser issue more than a regulatory issue. And so maybe they should look at it a different way. And I don't know. I don't know all the facts. I don't know. Mr. Woolman, I'm sure, has very good defenses. I'm sure that there's, I find it hard to believe that 14 bars were outrageous in their conduct. I just don't believe it. But
It's 18, Your Honor.
18,
Well, 17.
well, there's an awful lot of bars down there. I can remember when nobody went down there.
Me too.
It's changed.
Just except people that lived there, of course.
Right.
And I know what's happened is we have a lot of bars and also a lot of residences who people pay a lot of money for and have children going to school and so forth, and there's conflicting issues. So I don't know what else I can tell you, but I know I speak for my two commissioners and the feeling that we know that there's a problem, we know it has to be solved, and I know Mr. Woolman doesn't want to have 17 businesses have to come back here with a future. And of course, in the future, if you come back and complain, that'll be the issue of punishment and so forth, with respect to if it's proved. I don't like to use the word guilty because it's not a criminal court. This is a community place. Do you have any questions, you?
No, I just want to thank the board for the clarification of what you can and cannot do, and for your patience, both board members and staff.
Well, I say this, and maybe I say to all, both businesses and community, that I understand there's a problem, and perhaps you can work it out. I hope so.
Thank you.
Mr.
I hope
Woolman,
so
same.
too.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I may, very briefly, now that there is a record and evidence was introduced, just very briefly, for the record, indicate that, again, obviously, I object to evidence being introduced, but that being the case, and let me be clear, I represent a lot of developers in Baltimore City, and I regularly work with community associations
Mr. Woolman,
across
why
the
are you calling
city.
it evidence? I didn't
Well,
have-
it's
did not
there were,
have a
something was
hearing.
marked as an exhibit. I'll call it an exhibit. How about that?
The thing that was marked as exhibit was a simple withdrawal of the
And I thought there was
complaints.
a photograph or something like
No.
that. Oh, very well. My mistake, Your Honor.
No evidence.
I stand corrected. In that case, I'd still like to state for the record, since there was testimony from the other side, that, and again, I started to explain that I work with community organizations throughout the city and have for a long time on a regular basis. They serve a very important role in development, in business development.
probably
et cetera.
belong to 'em, down
I do. I belong to a neighboring association of, I think, the group that this group represents, although I'm not exactly sure who's being represented today. And listen, we could get into a back and forth as to what the community is in terms of what defines the community. I could take issue with some of, frankly, Your Honor's conclusory statements as to the reasons behind the festival, et cetera. We won't do that. I'll simply state for the record that weekend and during that day in particular, through an internal investigation done by your staff, there were no calls to the police department. There were no 311 calls made to the health department, to the fire department. There were no 311 calls made to the building official. There were only two 311 calls made to the liquor board that both were unsubstantiated and therefore cleared. So I want that to be clear for the record as to the facts
That's a good
surrounding
point,
this incident.
sure.
So with that, Your Honor, we thank the board for the renewal of the licenses. We look forward to working with the communities. This group has a long record of doing so. There was also an internal investigation done by your staff regarding these licensees, and the absence of violations over a course of many years is very telling, Your Honor. So we look forward to continuing to work with the community. I'll tell you very briefly that I had a community leader from a neighboring association contact me when they got word of this protest, because I've worked with this community in various projects over the years. And this person indicated that they felt this was unbelievably unfair and unreasonable and offered to help and had their own video that they're willing to supply. Fortunately, we don't have to get into all of that. But I just think it's important that the other side of the coin be heard from. And with that, I'll submit and thank the board for
Okay.
the renewal.
Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
All excused. Let me know when you're ready. Call the next case.
The next case is a protest of renewal for Brian Grace, Paul Gunsall, Fireball Entertainment, Inc., The Big Easy Cabaret. This is located at 2000 Eastern Avenue, a Class D beer, wine, and liquor license. Protest of renewal under Article 2B, 10301A.
All right, folks, everybody's going to testify in this case. Please come up. Anybody's going to be testifying, please come up. All right, call the case. Where's Michelle?
I believe she called it.
Huh?
She did call it. I called it. It's,
Oh, you did?
Yes, it is, sir.
All right, swear all, just please, swear all the witnesses.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
All right, who's going to represent 2000 Eastern Avenue?
Brian Grace.
All right, come on up. Enter your appearance.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Peter Previs on behalf of the licensee.
All right, now this is a protest of renewal, so we're going to go to them first and then come to you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Ms. Witt, you represent the,
I represent the Fells Prospect Community Association
all right,
in
anybody
protesting
else?
the renewal. No, that is my only
So
client.
everybody here is under your wing.
Yes,
Okay, I'll be glad to hear from you.
okay. All right. I have a packet of documents for each commissioner.
Okay.
And here's one. I have this for the record, sir. Okay. So there's two main arguments about the protest of renewal. And the first one that I'm going to begin with is that the licensees are ineligible to be Baltimore City licensees. And then the second argument that I'll get to is about the public health, safety, and welfare of the community. So,
All right, the first one is ineligible.
yes, the licensees are ineligible to be Baltimore City liquor licensees under the law. So, going to Article 2B, Section 9, which talks about who is eligible to be a licensee. 9101B.
901B,
9101B.
9101B.
Yes. It
Grab-
says that
You
for.
got your book? Yeah.
Oh, you
Who's
don't
got
have
it?
one? Okay.
Can I count on you, Commissioner,
for the
to
future,
to
sure.
look at, no, right now.
It's on page 188.
Oh, go ahead.
Sure. So what the law says is that if an application is made for a corporation, which the case is here, that the license shall be applied for and be issued to 3 of the officers of that corporation. As individuals for the use of the corporation, at least one of whom shall be a registered voter and taxpayer of the county or city, and shall also have resided therein at least 2 years prior to the application. So, I'm going to go through the 2 licensees and talk about why neither of them is qualified to be a licensee for this renewal. So, first of all, the first requirement is that they be officers of the corporation. So, Mr. Grace, according to his 2013 transfer of ownership application and 2014 renewal application, is an officer of the corporation. He's the president of the corporation. Mr. Gunshall, who is a co-licensee, according to the same documents which are attached in this first packet, is neither. He's not an officer of the corporation, so he is not eligible to be a licensee. In section 10103B, the application has to say that each licensee has a pecuniary interest in the business. And if you look at those same documents, Mr. Grace has a 100% interest in the business. Mr. Gunshall has 0% interest in the business. The third element is that one of the officers has to be a Baltimore City resident, according to Section 9101B, like we just read through, and also according to Liquor Board Rule 2.05. Mr. Grace, we were here, as you all probably remember, on November 20th, 2014, testified that he lives on the Eastern Shore. So he is not a Baltimore City resident. Also, the original transfer of ownership application from 2013 says that he lives on the Eastern Shore and has lived there for 12 years. Also, the State Department of Assessments and Taxation has a homestead application for Mr. Grace at his dwelling on the Eastern Shore in Queen Anne's County, and he's also registered to vote there. Mr. Gunshall when the application to transfer was first submitted, was a resident and property owner in Baltimore City in Federal Hill. However, he sold that property about 6 months after the transfer, so it was in August of 2013. And he now lives in Anne Arundel County and has lived there since the fall of 2013. And so attached to this little packet are all the printouts from the State Department of Assessments and Taxation showing that Mr. Grace, this is on page 11 of the packet, Mr. Grace lives in Centerville, which is in Queen Anne's County on the Eastern Shore. And Mr. Gunshaw on page 13 lives in Millersville, Maryland, which is in Anne Arundel County, and he has lived there, and he bought the property in September 2013 and submitted a homestead application in October 2013. You can also see on page 12 that Mr. Gunshaw's former address in Federal Hill, 130 East Clement Street, is now owned by new owners, and they have submitted their own homestead application. So they are residents and owners of that property. So the problem comes in where for the 2014 renewal application, which is on page 5, begins on page 5, Mr. Grace asserts that he lives at 2637 Hudson Street and that he's a city resident. So if you see on page 5,
What?
2637 Hudson Street, it's an address in Canton. Mr. Gunshaw testifies in this 2014 application that he lives at 130 East Clement Street, which is the house that he had sold 6 months prior to when this application was submitted. And he also testifies that he is a city resident, which he was not for 6 months. Also, neither of them is registered to vote in Baltimore City. They're both registered to vote at their respective homes in Queen Anne's County and in Anne Arundel County, and those printouts are attached in this
I'm
packet.
confused about Mr., the first one, 2637 Hudson Street was the city of Baltimore. Why is his statement incorrect?
Well, because he has testified here before the board in October of 2014 that he has lived on the Eastern Shore. And he doesn't own that property. That doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't reside there, but it's contradictory to his other testimony.
Is there any evidence that would indicate that he does have a residence at Hudson Street?
Not that I know of. And then I just got a copy of the renewal application for 2015.
So your point is that neither of them are city residents?
Exactly, and they both have testified that they do in their renewal
They
applications.
both have testified.
They both testified in 2014 that they do live in Baltimore City when neither of them does.
Mhm.
And the same thing is true of their 2015 renewal application. If you look at it, it says licensee, you all should have a copy, I believe. It says current home address for licensee number 1, Brian Grace, 2637 Hudson Street. It says he's lived there for 2 years. And then it doesn't, on the line that says, are you a city resident, it's not filled out. Licensee number 2, Paul Gunshaw, it says current home address, 130 East Clement Street. How long have you lived there? 6 years. That is the house that he sold in August of 2013. And then it says, are you a city resident? That is not filled out. It's been highlighted by liquor board staff. I believe that's all I had to present on the ineligibility for Baltimore City liquor license. Just to go back to the code one more time, it says a license shall be applied for and be issued to 3 of the officers for the use of the corporation, at least one of which shall be a registered voter and taxpayer of the city, Baltimore City in our case, and shall also have resided therein at least 2 years prior to the application. So the application, when it was originally submitted, may have been correct, but the renewal application for 2014 and 2015 contained fraudulent, misleading, deceptive statements to the board.
Now, did they never stated that they were voters or taxpayers in the renewals, or they did? You said they was not filled out. I'm not sure what you were talking about.
Right, so,
No, I'm going to hear what you.
so In the 2015 renewal, it says, there's a line that says, "Are you a city resident?" And it's left completely blank.
But what is then the answer to my question? Did they state they were voters or taxpayers?
I don't see a part of the application that talks about voter registration and taxpayer status.
But since you have had, that is a requirement, that's what you're stating.
Yes, sir. It is a
Well,
requirement.
then how did they get past muster?
I don't know. To be honest, I think this application is incomplete, and I also think the 2014 application is incomplete.
Okay.
Let me,
2015 has not been reviewed.
Wait a minute, stop. And you're not testifying.
so let me just look quickly at the 2014 application.
Okay, you gotta use the mic all the time.
Okay. So the 2014 application says, it says, "Are you a city resident?" And they both said yes, which we believe to be misstatements.
All right, now what about the,
The voter registration?
mhm.
I'm not sure that there's a section on the renewal application that talks about voter registration, at least
Okay.
not one that I see
So
here.
it's nothing one way or the other.
Right. And nor does it say anything about property, taxpayer status.
Now, that's your first issue.
Yes, that's my first
All right,
issue.
now, let me ask you a question. Do you want
Yes.
us to then let him to respond to the first issue before we go on to the other issues?
That's fine with me, if
All
that
right.
works.
Do you hear what she said?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good. We're only limiting it to this issue.
Totally understood. Mr. Grace, where do you currently live?
I currently reside at 108 Bonds Road in Centerville, Maryland.
And you own that house?
Yes,
Centerville.
Center,
Bonds, B-O-N-D-S Road in Centerville, Maryland.
okay. And you own that house?
Yes.
With whom, if anybody else?
My wife and 4 children.
Okay. And what, if any, contact do you have with 2637 Hudson Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21224?
I stay there on weekends when I'm at the bar late, and I've been doing that since roughly I started the bar.
Now, in the hearing back in November, you indicated that your address was what?
108 Bonds Road in Centerville, Maryland.
Okay, and you further indicated that you previously resided where?
In Canton.
At the Hudson Street address?
Yes.
Okay. You don't own the house in Hudson Street?
No.
Who owns that house?
I believe it's a corporation. I'm not sure the exact
But
name.
who's the person that
My landlord.
your landlord at 2000 Eastern Avenue?
Yes.
Okay, so you have an apartment at Hudson Street?
I rent a room, yes.
Okay, you don't own it?
No.
You're not registered to vote there?
No.
Okay. When you filled out Hudson Street,
Yes.
why did you put Hudson Street?
I thought that I was establishing residence in Baltimore City when I was doing that. I thought by having an apartment to rent that was a resident. I didn't realize I needed to register to vote, or I would have.
Okay. Now, you further testified in the hearing back in November that your Baltimore City qualifying resident, Mr. Gunshaw,
Yes.
that he lives in Washington DC, I believe the transcript indicated?
Millersville, Anne Arundel
He lives
County.
in Millersville now?
Yes.
Where does he work?
Washington, D.C.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
my misstatement. Okay, and you knew Mr. Gunshaw from where?
From working in Washington, D.C.
And you work for the,
Washington, D.C. Fire Department.
okay. Now, Mr. Gunshaw previously resided where?
I'm not sure the exact address, in Federal Hill, Clement Street, I believe was what.
Okay. When did you become aware that Mr. Gunshaw no longer resided in Federal Hill or otherwise owned that house?
I'm not entirely sure. It was definitely after he moved.
Okay.
I couldn't give you an exact date. I want to say it was in the summertime, so possibly June of 2014.
Okay. Now, when these issues were brought to your attention, did you contact me
Yes,
and did you revise your application?
yes. As
When
soon,
these
2015.
issues we're talking about right now.
Residency,
yes, as soon
sir.
as I found out that I had not established residency, that Paul was not a city resident, I contacted Mr. Previous immediately and did what I could to rectify the situation.
Okay, and did you submit a revised application?
Yes,
And have you provided the board with a someone other than Mr. Gunshall as a Baltimore City resident?
Yes,
And has that person been fingerprinted?
yes,
Okay. So you agree that Mr. Gunshall is no longer qualified?
yes, absolutely.
And-
As soon as I realized that, I tried to rectify it.
And if the board sees fit to renew this license, he will be removed?
Yes,
And the new person, Haley Scott Taggart, 5204 Plainfield Avenue, Baltimore, 21206, would be the other city resident licensee?
yes.
Okay. I have no further questions on that issue.
So you testified just now that you learned that Mr. Gunshall moved from Baltimore City in the summertime
Of 2014.
Roughly.
Okay. Because, just to refresh your recollection, with 2 pages of the transcript from the November 20th hearing, I'm just going to show it to you, and then you can see what you testified. So it's just at the bottom of page 9 of what I've handed the commissioners. This is from your testimony on the 20th of November. So what did you tell the commissioners in November of 2014 about where Mr. Gunshall lived?
I don't remember his address exactly.
And you further
Federal Hill
clarified?
somewhere.
Okay. Okay. I guess that's all the questions that I had about Mr. Grace's testimony about the addresses. I can address the revised application that was submitted late in the day yesterday.
We'll have argument in a second.
Okay.
I want to make sure that the questions are taken care of.
Okay.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Commissioner questions?
Who was Haley Scott Taggart?
She's been an employee and a good friend.
Employee of who or what?
She's a dancer.
So who's she employed by?
Well, she's employed by herself, but she's danced for me for 2 years.
For the Big Easy.
They're independent contractors
So she dances at the Big Easy.
and other places.
And so Haley Scott Taggart is a 23-year-old dancer
Mhm.
from the Big Easy, and that is the person who gives you the city residency,
Yes,
correct? Does she have an ownership interest in the business?
she will.
Does she today?
Not as of right now, no.
Okay. And she did, not as of today, and certainly not as of the time of the application? Because the application predates today, so she didn't have it and then
Right.
lose it. She never had it. She doesn't have it. She has no ownership interest in the business as of today, correct?
Yes, that is.
Okay. And how long has she been dancing at the Big Easy?
2 years.
2 years. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? None? All right, your argument.
Okay. Section 10503 talks about transfers of interest between licensees. And so it says, in section 10503A2, any holder of a license may transfer or sell or assign the license, but only if an application has been submitted and the new assignee is approved by the board. And Ms. Taggart, I believe her name is, has not submitted an application to transfer ownership of the license, as far as I am aware. And I'm certain that she has not been approved by the board under section 10503, which, I mean, we have hearings all the time about transferring ownership from one licensee to another, and I am unclear as to how this could happen during a renewal application as opposed to a transfer application. I don't think it's legal under
You're
Article
saying that the
2B.
application was not submitted?
Yes, that's as far as I know, sir.
And if it was submitted, it would have to be approved as to form
Yes, sir.
by the staff, and then submitted for a hearing.
Yes, sir.
And you said there was no hearing.
No,
That's
there
your
has not been
position.
a hearing, as far as I know.
All right, anything else on your arguments?
When it comes, no, not as far as the fact that the licensees are not qualified to hold their license. They haven't been qualified since Mr. Gunshall sold his property in 2013.
There's no resident of the city of Baltimore.
Yes, and they have made material misstatements, both in the 2014 renewal and the 2015 renewal, that I think shed a lot of light on their character, on whether their license should be renewed.
All right, argument?
With regard to the application issue, on the 2015 renewal form, the second to last question, or actually the last question on the first page says, are there any majority stockholder or corporate officer changes from last year? It has been board policy, although I don't know.
This is the form that we have in our
Yes, Your
record.
Honor.
Mhm.
It has been board policy that if it's not a majority stockholder change, that the changes can be made through the renewal process. And I think it specifically says in 10301 that changes in officers or licensees are allowed to be made on the transfer application.
And
So that's what-
didn't you originally say there was an amended transfer
Renewal,
renewal?
Your Honor.
But you're now talking about the one for the coming year.
For the 2015, yes.
Yes. But that's the only one that exists, that you're alleging exists.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
I just wanted to
And
point
what
out,
does it say, this renewal application for 2015?
as modified, Brian Grace, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Brian M. Grace, 108 Bonds Road, Centerville, Maryland. Haley Scott Taggart is the proposed licensee, 5204 Plainfield Avenue, Baltimore, 21206. Mr. Gunshall is not being requested to be a licensee for the upcoming
This is
year.
the one before the board right now.
Yes, sir.
I mean, my issue with that is it says, are there any majority stockholder or corporate officer changes from last year? So the corporate officers who were in place last year are Mr. Grace by himself. And so it says no. So Ms. Taggart is not an officer of the corporation because there have not been any corporate officer changes, and therefore she's not eligible to be a licensee currently. She doesn't have an interest in the business. She's not an officer. That is what the law says, that the license is issued to officers of a corporation. And she's not an officer, as they just informed the board.
What's your answer to that?
What Mr. Grace testified to is she's not yet a stockholder, but she, if approved, would become a minority stockholder. So she wouldn't be an officer, but she would be a stockholder.
Well, he testified, he just finished testifying that she's not a stockholder as of now.
Right.
If I could clarify, I had promised her 25% of the company, and that was all a verbal, if she would do it for me, which she did. I haven't had a chance to do any of the paperwork or anything to that effect. So a verbal agreement has been reached with her. I have not filed any sort of official paperwork. I didn't even know where to begin. I just was trying to get this resolved.
And that's conditionally upon the board approving her as a licensee. Okay.
But don't we just have, we have to have an application, right?
The renewal application,
No, but don't we have to have an application to transfer an interest?
a majority interest.
Any interest? To remove somebody from the license and then to add someone from the license? The only question is the qualifications of the new licensee, the person that's being added to the license. That's our right to do that. And we haven't had an application asking us to assess the credentials, qualifications, bona fides of Ms. Taggart. How do we?
We'd be more than happy to do that. I
But you
probably
ha-
did.
But it hasn't happened, and no disrespect, but going from no interest to 25% in that quick of a flash, it doesn't. I've said it before, when it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck, and that's challenging testimony from you
I don't
in terms of believability.
Oh, okay.
I guess I would just, to bring us back to 9101, it says that the license is given to officers and not necessarily to stockholders. I don't see in the law where it says the license is issued to a stockholder. So unless Ms. Taggart is made an officer, she cannot hold a liquor license for this establishment.
That's true.
That's what it said.
It's to officers.
Read it, please.
So, if the application is made for a corporation or a club, whether incorporated or unincorporated, the license shall be applied for and be issued to 3 of the officers of that corporation or club as individuals for the use of the corporation or club. So it only speaks to officers, not stockholders or shareholders. They must be officers. That's Maryland law. Article 2B, Section 9-101B. Not our laws. That's the state of
B.
Maryland. And if you look at page 188, Mr. Previs at the top.
I don't
Right.
have a different
Oh,
volume. I have
okay.
Official code. These.
I'll just point out also that even if we did have an application before us, we don't have any reason to believe that Ms. Taggart is a taxpayer of the city. She may be a resident, she doesn't own property that I could find in Baltimore City. And she hasn't paid personal property tax in her own name in Baltimore City. So there's no other information in the application about whether or not she's a taxpayer in Baltimore City.
She is registered to vote.
She is registered to vote, that's true.
Is she here today?
No.
She's not here? Okay.
Commissioner Moore, your point is well taken that if so duly qualified, that Ms. Taggart should be not only a stockholder, but granted an office. And we would,
It doesn't matter whether she holds stock or not, so you could save your 25%. You
Right.
don't have to give her anything, but she has to be an
we
officer.
would, yeah. The prior year's forms had a listing of all of the stockholders and their percentages and all of the officers. The revised form does not have that on here. And that probably would have
Okay,
been helpful
that's
in
understandable,
filling it out. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree with that, and just to point out that in 2014, the 2014 renewal has Mr. Grace as the sole officer of the corporation, which means that Mr. Gunshall was apparently removed sometime between April of 2013, when the license was transferred, and March of 2014, when the 2014 renewal application was filed. So even in 2014, the renewal application was insufficient, and in 2015, it was also insufficient.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's the end of my first argument.
All right. Now I'm going to hold that decision in abeyance, and we're going to go on to your next item.
Okay. So continuing along in my packet, the next section is a section of letters asking the board to deny the renewal because it's a detriment to public health, safety, and welfare of the community. And there are letters from the Fells Prospect Community Association, the Fells Point Community Organization, Butchers Hill Association, Patterson Park Neighborhood Association. These are all neighboring community associations. The only community association that directly surrounds the bar is Fells Prospect, but these are all, as you know very well, Baltimore neighborhoods are very small, and things that happen in one neighborhood affect others. Patterson Park Butchers Hill, Baltimore Highlands Neighborhood Association, and the Cristo Rey Jesuit High School. Those are all the institutions in the area that submitted letters asking the board to deny the renewal. There's also a letter from City Councilman Jim Kraft, City Council President Jack Young, and this letter came in just now. It's from the 46th Legislative Delegation, so including the 3 delegates and the state senator from the 46th District asking to deny the renewal. And then there are 3 letters from individual neighbors also, all asking to deny the renewal. So I just wanted to submit those.
All right, you gave us that. in the packet.
Yes, you have that in their
All right, So
packet.
what do they say?
Well, they give various complaints as to the operation of the establishment. There's a lot of complaints about noise, parking.
Now, what complaints have occurred since the last hearing?
Since the last hearing. So that actually.
Because we were here for the last hearing, and we found them responsible, and there was punishment.
Indeed.
And so now I'm interested as to what has occurred to see whether or not, for example, there's been an improvement in the
Right.
operation of the facility, or whether the same complaints are still existent.
I think most of the complaints were from before the suspension because of some other evidence that I will bring in to explain why it hasn't been open very much as of late. I guess I can skip to that. So we
Well, I
already.
think the board can take knowledge of the fact that what we heard last time, of course, we heard. But what you have to do is tell us what's changed, if anything.
Yes, sir. So what I wanted to bring up, this is the very final packet, which is, has to do with Richie Mariano, who was here in November as the manager. He testified about the fight, the alleged fight that had happened, as well as 2 bartenders. And so what happened after the November 20th hearing was 4 days after that, Mr. Mariano was arrested with 2 large packages of cocaine in his car that he had driven from New York to Baltimore. And so some of the reason that, and there's more information in this packet that I'm happy to go through more specifically, but some of the reasons that there haven't been noise complaints recently is because of that arrest and subsequent raid of the bar. It hasn't been open very much. I'm just proffering that.
Well, can you tell us exactly, give us,
Sure. So here is the federal criminal complaint against Mr. Mariano. Begins on page 1. And this is an affidavit of Mr. Fisher, who's a agent of the ATF, and talks about the investigation that he did into Mr. Mariano. The ATF, so I'm looking at page 2 of this packet. Under summary of the investigation, the ATF, the police department, and the Department of Homeland Security have been investigating Mr. Mariano. They had spoken with confidential sources. They had done wiretaps on his phone and some other phones and figured out that he was trafficking cocaine into Baltimore City. And so on November 24th, which again is 4 days after the hearing that we had here on November 20th, he was arrested in Maryland, traveling in a car back to Baltimore City, and 2 softball-sized
And when was the
bundles.
date of that
This is
arrest?
November 24th at 5:40 a.m. There was a warrant issued for his arrest on November 21st, which is the day after our hearing here. So on November, I'm looking at page 3, and there's some highlighted parts which are my highlighting. But he was stopped on the road, and they found 2 softball-sized bundles of hard and compressed white powdery substance in a clear plastic bag wrapped in a towel and disguised in some way. They had a canine unit that identified it as cocaine.
all right, now, he's the manager of the bar.
He was the manager of the bar.
But the drugs were not found on him in the bar
No,
or any connection with the bar.
not that we know of right now.
Well, there's no evidence before
Right.
us.
So he was arrested right on the highway, and then subsequent to that, I believe on the same day or within a couple days, the bar was raided by ATF agents, and we don't know what, if anything, they found at the bar.
What date was that?
I am not 100% certain. I think it was the same day as the arrest, or it could have been the next day. it was somewhere within 1 or 2 days of Mr. Mariano's arrest that the bar was raided
And you
by.
have no result of that?
No, they are still, the ATF is still putting together its investigation, so they haven't really given a lot of information.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so, right, so this arrest was
Then
not.
you say the bar was not open as much. You got to give us facts.
Okay, I can call up 2 people to testify about their experience with the bar. So I'm going to call up first Marianne Ferguson. Sorry, one more thing I just wanted to point out about the criminal complaint is that it says that they found 3 people in the car, and the 3 people were Mr. Mariano, Megan Fisher, and Christine Hamilton. And those 3 people all testified on November 20th. The 2 women were the bartenders who testified about the fight. So they were in the car when the drugs were found in the car. Just wanted to make that clear. Okay. Could we borrow a microphone for Marianne? Okay. Okay. Marianne, could you state your name for the record, please?
Marianne Ferguson.
And could you spell your last name?
It's F-U-R-G-I-S-O-N.
Okay. Can you speak up just a little bit? Okay. So where do you live in relation to the Big Easy?
I live half block away from the Big Easy for the last 20 years.
And can you describe to the commissioner some of the specific complaints that you've had about the Big Easy since April 2013 when the licensees took it over?
Okay. So in the evenings,
We had a hearing.
right,
Okay.
On all
right.
these complaints.
Mhm.
Why are we going back before the hearing?
Well, we can talk about, I guess, what's happened since the hearing, but we thought that under your administrative order, that anything that's happened since
That's true. Anything.
the
that's happened.
licensees
But-
took over.
Speaking for myself, it seems to me if a person comes in, gets punished
Mhm.
and warned if they come back, this and that will happen, that we are going to pay particularly attention to what has happened since that time. Plus the fact, I think we can be charged with the knowledge of what we heard before.
Okay. All right.
Plus the fact you've had a hearing since then, and one of those charges was reversed, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Did you know about that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So, Ms. Ferguson, could you talk about any issues and complaints that you've had specifically since the suspension occurred, which was November 20th?
Well, they haven't been open since the suspension. There were
Haven't
2
opened
months.
at all?
A few weekends. The lights were on. I assume they were open on those days. But there was one occasion where there were, again, people standing outside loitering. This has been a chronic problem, where they're standing outside, talking loudly, carrying on. They're not just there for a few minutes to smoke a cigarette. They're out there for extended periods of time. And I could hear it at my house, a half block away.
Now, how many feet away would you say your house is?
Let me think.
How about
Probably
a football
about,
field? Are you that
yeah,
far?
probably about
Football field?
1.5 football fields.
1.5.
About
Okay.
150.
And you could hear.
Huh? Me? Oh, they're saying it's 70, so,
So,
but,
measured it for.
Well,
Yeah.
you gotta be the one to
okay.
testify.
So,
It's less than a football field.
Less than a football
okay,
field,
yes.
okay.
if this
70 yards.
is
Now,
helpful.
what did you
yards,
hear?
okay.
What did you, less than a foot, what did?
Well, I can hear them talking out there, and I looked outside and can see them outside at the Washington Street side of the Big Easy,
People standing outside.
standing outside, yes.
I did submit a map to the board. It's in your packet of all the people who signed the petition, and Ms. Ferguson's name is, so maybe she can point out to you where she lives on the map. Your name is right.
All right, you can put an F there for Ferguson.
On this corner right here.
All right, I think we've heard enough about where she lives.
Okay.
Frankly, let's go on.
Okay, so can you testify to anything else that's happened since the raid?
Like I said, it has not been open,
You
but,
said a couple weekends.
yeah, just a couple
And
weekends
you could
that
hear
I've,
people
that I,
stand outside and talking.
yes.
All right, what else?
Disturbing my peace. I just want to say that this is what has happened. We come to the liquor board. This is just half of the stuff I've gathered since I've been coming to the liquor board about this bar, this problem bar, since 2006. Prior to that, we were in the community trying to discover ways we could talk with the owners and have agreement on how they can
Let me
manage
ask,
it.
the current ownership goes back to where? 10?
2003, oh, this one,
13? So you see, we're going,
right.
can't
But,
go back before that.
but, sir, what happens is,
Here's the problem that, Ms. Ferguson, that's obvious to me, and it has nothing to do with my decision, but to have this type of bar, this type of code in this location, whatever liquor board way back made this decision, I don't think they realized that downtown Baltimore is going to not become, it's going to become a place to live for people like you and for many other people and anybody who wants to live. In the old days, it was all warehouses and empty piers and broken down stuff and so forth. I know very well because I know the city. And what we've got now, we've got a mistake from an old liquor board that put this type of use that we're bound by. And we can't close this bar because we don't think they should have that type of use. You understand that?
sure, I understand
This
that.
liquor board can only close this bar if they don't obey the law and operate properly. So we go back to when he gets the new ownership,
Right,
and we've already heard the disciplines that we imposed at the previous hearing. And that's why I think, as far as myself is concerned, I'm more interested in what has happened since that time to see whether or not these learned any lesson, whether the licensees have learned a lesson.
well,
And,
what I just wanted to say was, the licensees come to the liquor board, we're all here, you know, explaining to them that this has been a chronic problem in the past. So we see new leadership, we think, or ownership, we think, okay, you know, maybe they'll turn it around and make it be good neighbors in the neighborhood, and that doesn't happen because they end up hiring shadow owners, and then we have problems. The bar goes to pot. No pun intended, but.
So,
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson, do you believe that it's necessary for the public health, safety, and welfare of the community to deny the renewal?
I do. I feel that it has not gotten any better, and I feel that it needs to be out of this neighborhood.
Thank you.
All right, questions, if any?
Ms. Ferguson, you indicated that you saw people loitering on the corner of Eastern and Washington in front of the premises.
Right. Alongside the premises on the Washington Street side.
Okay. Did you see them come out of the premises?
No, I did not see them coming out of the premises, but they were against the side wall, which is,
On Washington Street?
yes, on the Washington Street side, the 400 block.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further
Mm-hmm.
All right, Commissioner questions?
Oh.
If any.
I have a question, not for this witness, but more about the license itself, so I can wait.
All right. Next witness.
Okay, just one more. Robert Birch. Can you state your name for the record and spell your last name, please?
My name is Robert Birch, B-U-R-C-H.
And do you own property adjoining the Big Easy?
I do, at 2002 Eastern Avenue.
And can you describe, you testified in November about some of the complaints that you've had. Can you talk about any complaints that you've received about the Big Easy since the raid and suspension?
I'd like to reference the answer to your question really lies in a letter that my 3 tenants living in the property prepared and submitted to Ms. Hedgepath. Very specifically, in the last paragraph, it reads, And have the commissioners seen the letter? I don't want to waste your time. May I read the two
I
sentences?
haven't seen it, go
Okay.
ahead. I'm not sure about the.
Just three sentences. In closing, we enjoyed a bit of a reprieve from the Big Easy from the time the liquor board suspended its liquor license in November of last year to late January 2015. However, as far as we are concerned, the situation has not changed. Getting restful sleep is difficult, and our concerns about fights and arrests of patrons with firearms clearly do not sit well with us. Lastly, most important, as we have learned, the federal government continues to investigate the Big Easy, making us ask ourselves if it's time to move on.
All right, questions, sir?
Thank you. Mr. Birch, you don't live there, you're the landlord, as you indicated.
That is correct.
Okay. And have, your tenants are not here today?
That is correct.
My reading of the letter, they do not address any specifics about anything that occurred since the closure. Is that correct?
That I'm aware of, no. They only indicate that, as it says, as far as we are concerned, the situation has not changed, and getting restful sleep is difficult.
Okay. And the tenants do have the cell phone number of Mr. Grace, and they know how to contact them?
I can't deny or confirm that. I don't know.
One final question. At the prior hearing, your property is on 2002 Eastern Avenue, correct?
That is correct.
And the premises, the licensed premises is 2000 Eastern Avenue.
That is correct.
And when I went on the city website, it indicates that you're a B2 zone, but you had testified that you had that changed to residential?
Zoning, I believe zoning changed it to it's R. I don't know what the number is.
But you actually had a zoning proceeding to change that zoning from B2 to R8 because the map still says B2. I'm just curious.
I believe that zoning changed it to R, I believe.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay.
Your answer is that you didn't do it, but zoning did it.
That's correct, Your Honor.
You understand that?
Understood.
Okay. No other questions?
No
Commissioner
other
questions? If any? Any other?
No other witnesses and no other
Thank you.
testimony. I think all my evidence has been submitted.
Okay. For a final roundup, and then argument. I'll give you 2 minutes.
Or does Mr.
Would
Pregis?
you like to
I'm
hear from
sorry.
Mr. Grace, Your Honor?
I'm jumping ahead. Absolutely, your case.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No.
Go on. Let's
Thank
go.
you. Call Mr. Brian Grace. Mr. Grace, you've been sworn?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you are the owner of the licensed premises?
Yes.
Of Fireball Entertainment, Inc.?
Yes.
All right. Now, when we had the hearing back in November,
Yes.
and you heard the testimony that everyone else here heard,
Yes.
what did you do?
I fired Richie Marina before we left the building.
And anyone else?
Anybody involved with him?
Okay. Now, there was a closure ordered by this board.
Yes.
Did you request the stay of that closure?
I know we filed an appeal, but that was all we did.
But you remain closed?
Yes.
And you fired Mr. Marino?
Yes.
Okay. Now, that was on a Thursday, that hearing.
Yes.
What occurred the weekend following
I don't know.
with regard to the premises?
It was shut down that night.
I'm talking with regard to any criminal investigations.
The ATF apparently raided the bar.
And that was on Saturday into Sunday?
That's
of that,
possible,
That
yes.
weekend? Okay. And they came in with a search warrant,
I never saw a copy of the search warrant.
but you're aware of
I'm,
that?
I'm assuming that they did, or I was told.
What, if anything, did they confiscate?
The camera system,
And do they still have that camera system?
yes.
Okay. Now, so you honored the closure?
Yes.
You didn't open for any purpose during that closing period?
No.
And did you reopen?
Yes, as soon as our time frame was up.
And who was there day to day during that reopening?
Me, I'm basically the only person there.
And when do you open?
Fridays and Saturdays.
Only Fridays and Saturdays?
Yes.
Do you have dancers?
Yes.
Okay, but you're the sole person?
Yes.
No managers?
No, I'm the bartender, the doorman, the manager, everything.
Okay. Have you taken heed of the board's
Yes, that was a very sobering situation.
Okay. You have a lot of money invested in this,
Yes. Hundreds of thousands.
and you do not want to?
No, I do not want to lose that.
Okay. So with regard to consistency of opening, you were open every Friday and Saturday?
The nights that I was working in Washington DC, I was not, but other than that, yes.
Okay. You're not allowing anyone else to open for you?
No. I'd rather be closed than face what I faced before.
You are a Washington DC fireman?
Yes.
Is it Washington DC what?
Fireman?
Yes.
And that's your current employment?
Yes.
And what did you do before that?
I was a police officer,
Where were you a police officer?
Ocean City, Maryland.
And how long did you do that?
6 months.
Uh,
6 months.
6 months,
And then I
okay.
was hired by the fire department, so I left.
Okay. Do you have any involvement with Mr. Marino whatsoever?
None whatsoever.
Do you condone any of his activities?
Absolutely not. I wasn't even aware that he'd been arrested till she just read that. I didn't know that.
Okay, but you
I have not
severed,
even spoke with him.
you severed all contacts with him
Absolutely.
as you left the building in November?
Yes.
You know Mr. Birch's tenants at 2002 Eastern Avenue?
I know as of, say, last June who was there. I don't know who is, if they're still the same people, then yes. I have not seen or heard from them.
Okay. You had provided them with your cell phone?
Yes.
And they used to patronize the premises when you were day-to-day operator?
Yes.
You haven't seen them since the closure?
No.
Have you received any phone calls from them with regard to noise or loitering complaints or any other complaints?
No.
Okay. If there was a complaint, would you react?
Absolutely.
Thank you. No further
You're talking
questions,
about
Your
the tenants.
The tenants, yes, sir.
All right, Cross.
Did you do a background check on Mr. Mariano when you hired him as
Re-
manager?
regrettably, no.
You did not?
No.
So you didn't know about his prior drug and gun charges?
I asked him point blank if he was a felon, and he told me no. He had a couple minor drug mishaps, but absolutely not. If I had known that, I would have never hired him.
Did you ever inform the liquor board that Mr. Mariano was your manager?
Was what?
Was the manager?
No.
Okay. You may have already answered this question for Mr. Previs, but do you know if the ATF agents found any drugs or guns or anything illegal on your property when they raided it?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. So you said that the November 20th hearing was sobering. Have you been to any community association meetings to talk about ways that you could improve your business?
I have reached out to the community association. That was not very successful, and I reached out to Mr. Birch as well. And I told him that I wanted to be a good neighbor and I'd keep the sound down, and I didn't want to cause any problems for him.
You said you fired Mr. Mariano before you left the building on November 20th?
Yes.
Oh, okay. But during the hearing, you said that you wanted Mr. Mariano to continue running the bar in a responsible way. Did you not?
No, I don't recall, but by the time I left out of here, I was so angry. He was deceitful to me as well. He did not tell me the truth. The whole situation was a bad situation. I was furious when we left. It cost me 2 months and $2,000, and no, I had no intentions. Believe me, when I left here, he's gone, as far gone as you can be.
Okay. I believe those are all my questions.
Any redirect?
One small question. Mr. Marino worked for you for how long? From when to when?
Let's say August to that day in November.
Okay, thank you.
Any commissioner questions?
There was a lot of discussion about being able to change a corporate officer at renewal, and that applies only in a certain circumstance. And my question is whether or not this license is a statewide license.
It's not. The statewide licenses would be the comptroller's office issued license. The other licenses are the Baltimore City and the counties.
So this is strictly a city local license.
Yes.
And I just wanted to tell you, my reading of
Article 2B dash, Section 9-101B, which I think is what you were relying on to say that you could change a corporate officer at renewal, that only applies to statewide licenses, which this is not. So there's no provision for changing a corporate officer at renewal for this local license. Just wanted to get that clarity.
If I could add to that, having done things by custom as opposed to the letter of the law, after we got the YIM decision, a case that I was counsel on, and the Court of Special Appeals issued a 54-page decision going word by word, I learned a lot of things that were not done by custom. And if the board were to give Mr. Grace the opportunity to continue, we would certainly make every effort to comply with the spirit and the letter of the law.
Anything else? All right, final argument, 2 minutes. Time it, please.
Yeah, my phone
So
died.
just to recap, the two licensees are not qualified to be licensees because one of them is not an officer and the other one does not live in Baltimore City. And not only are they not qualified, but they have willfully misled the board for both the 2014 and 2015 renewal application, which speaks to their character. On top of which, this bar has been a problem for the neighborhood for a long time. I know we're only here for the last 2 years, but as we found out in November, the licensees have been absentee licensees. They've enjoyed all of the financial benefits of the business and put all of the harm onto the local community with the noise and fights and that we heard about in November, the gun that was found, and now an ATF raid, a federal raid of this bar. The licensee stated in November that he wants to be at the bar as little as possible, but the neighbors do not have that luxury. This is where they live, and he has the luxury of living in another county, a nice, quiet county, where he doesn't have to deal with a strip club in the middle of his residential community. It's just not fair to the community members who are here. They want the license denied its renewal. I think, Chairman Ward, you said that the bar being put here was a mistake by an old or former liquor board, and I think it's time to correct the mistake and deny the renewal of this license. The licensees have forfeited their privilege to do business at this location. And I hope that you will deny the renewal of this license. Thank you.
2 minutes.
Thank you, Your Honor. I believe Mr. Grace has shown loud and clear that he took heed of the board's admonition back in November. He's done everything to be as quiet and unobtrusive and comply with the law and the peace of the neighborhood since that occurred. And he has no intention of going back to the nightmare that he went through and that everybody else went through in this situation. For that reason, I respectfully request that the license be renewed, that he has shown that he takes it seriously. With regard to the application, I was not initially directly involved in completion of the application. We will rectify anything that needs rectifying, and if the board is so inclined to renew this license and make sure that we comply with all requirements in the statute. Thank you.
All right, time for decision. I vote first. My decision is I vote that the license shall not be renewed because I adopt Ms. Wert's argument with respect to the legality of the renewal of the license, which I find that it has not been properly renewed and that the license is a nullity. And at the present time, therefore, since it has not complied with the city law with respect to the liquor board, and the city law with respect to liquor license approvals, it can't be renewed. In addition to that, with respect to the testimony, I find that while past performance is not that there seems to be, in this particular case, an improvement, certainly in the operation of the license. Nevertheless, I adopt all of the prior testimony and the testimony today with respect to my decision.
I concur with the judge. I was very quiet during the proceeding, but I was listening.
Oh, thank you.
And what I heard was, I did not know. You know, sometimes what you don't know can cause harm to others. In this case, it caused harm to the peacefulness of this community. As an owner, you have a due diligence to knowing things about the business that you're going to be a part of. And the type of business that we are talking about can have a great effect on that community. And I think every community deserves peace. And also, there should be a good working relationship with that community and the owner of your establishment. I'm quite sure you're a good person. Your intent was good. You wanted to do something good for yourself and your family. But your method for going about doing that was poor. I mean, you hired somebody without knowing the background. Obviously, there wasn't enough supervision over that person. Things happen. With all this in mind, I mean, I agree. I have nothing further to add.
So, I concur with the chairman and my fellow commissioner. I remember when you were here in November, and one of the things that struck me then, and I don't have the full record, but I remember being very concerned about the absentee nature of the management
of this location, and that has continued, but it's even worse than that. Y'all aren't even Baltimore City residents. There is no Baltimore City resident. So I think the first argument that was made regarding the eligibility to own this license is extreme. It's persuasive, and it makes very, very clear that even the basic requirements haven't been met. And I think that it's more of not an actual not knowing of information, but an active not knowing. You're a former police officer. You're a current member of the fire department for the District of Columbia. I think that gives you a higher level of access to the knowledge necessary to vet those that would be managing your property. The absolute failure to do anything at all to vet the background of your manager. And I do have the testimony where we asked you what was it that you wanted, and you said it was your wish that Mr. Marino managed the property, the business properly. And I said properly, and you said yes, properly. And but that's not what happened. I think the problems that the community has had to deal with are gross. It's just absolutely gross, and it doesn't have to be that way. So it's for those reasons that I do join in the decision to not renew this license.
All right, folks, you have our decision. And we're standing adjournment until next week.